Jackie. Good morning, elevations. Yeah, I love it when the crowd goes wild. This is really the world that I am so grateful to be a part of. GIS community, elevations, all the people that put their time and effort into this event. This is really, what makes us a strong community. I'm really very excited about today's presentation. Even going back to when we were talking about the in-person elevations event, it was really thoughts on, well, what can we do different? What is it that we need to see? We have all participated in UAV presentations, workshops that focus on the different birds, what their flight times are, different sensors, control, RTK, all of those types of things. This presentation, we're going to assume that you've used best field practices, that you have great data. We're going to focus on what you can do with that data. It's all about the deliverables. At the end of the day, once we've collected it, what is that deliverable? How are you going to use that data? How do you get paid? Does it fit your scope of work? So the title of this workshop is Getting the Most Out of Your UAV Data plus Integrating into Survey GIS and Beyond. So I've been in the GIS industry for over 20 years. Those who know me, I am a supporter of anything geospatial. I've been in the UAV game for over 5 years. This is something that is our future in GIS. This is a big part of data collection. All of these things, fit together. This is an interactive workshop. So I'll be monitoring the question and answers. Please ask questions. Phil and I are social distancing in our conference room. So I'll be able to interrupt him if you have a question. And at the end, definitely, we'll open it up. We'll have communication. So again, remember, this is a workshop. If you have a question, an idea, or a thought, please reach out. Frontier Precision. We are Trimble's, as you can see right back here, Trimble's geospatial distributor worldwide. So we are their top dealer worldwide. This is a very exciting opportunity for us because we tie in everything in the geospatial environment. So survey, scanning, mapping, UAV. We have custom divisions in mosquito control, water sensors. All of these things fall under the geospatial heading. We're also an Esri Gold business partner. This is the backbone of our GIS business. How do we bring everything into those deliverables? How do we tie everything together into an Esri environment? How do we have best field procedures, best equipment, best deliverables? Putting all of these pieces in together. We're very lucky today to have Phil Jahns with us. He is part of our UAV team. At this point, I'll hand it off to Phil. I'll let him introduce himself. And really the takeaways that I want you guys to have from this is interactive. If you have questions, please do not wait to the end. Pop them up and we'll make this all work together. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So as David mentioned, my name is Phil Jahns. Work here for Frontier Precision. Feel really blessed to be a part of this team. For years, I've been the drone guy. And one of the big challenges of being a drone operator in a world of GIS and surveyors and mappers and guys that really understand coordinate systems and projections and just all of that technology is many of the UAV counterparts that I've worked with and companies, we have a pretty good understanding and a backbone behind the scenes, but most drone guys don't understand this. And so I've really had quite the lesson and growth experience here at Frontier Precision so far, working with guys like David and other members of our team across the country. Yeah, let's just dive in. So I am one of 5 team members in our UAS department across Frontier Nation. Again, my name is SiddleJahns. I have a counterpart, Mike Clarenbeek in Sioux Falls. Nathan Stevenson is here with me in Denver, our applied geospatial engineer. And then Chris Kelly in Washington and Jeremiah Wong, our newest team member in Maple Grove. If you have any questions after this, you are always welcome to reach out. This goes to our entire team. So any questions UAS related or anything you need at all, you're welcome to reach out at uas@frontierprecision.com. This is something I like to just spend a second on. One of the benefits that I really love about Frontier, I've worked for manufacturers and worked on support and customer success for individual manufacturers before coming to Frontier. But now, one of the things that I've noticed that's different after joining is that we do not just carry one company, one manufacturer, one solution. We have access to a number of different solutions. You'll see aircraft manufacturers on here, sensor manufacturers, FLIR, Yellowscan, LiDAR, thermal, RGB, different processing, different photogrammetry software with Pix4D, Agisoft Metashape, and then even cloud-based processing that takes some of these engines and puts them under their hood and gives you access to take that data. And we're going to spend a good amount of time today talking about that. After we get the data, some of the processing options to get to the end, but then what do we do with that data? So very exciting to be able to offer our customers the best solutions rather than kind of offering them the only solution or two that we have. Okay, so our agenda today, we're really going to dig in and we're going to start with what's your deliverable. Then we'll talk a little bit about accuracy, data processing considerations, and this will really just be a quick overview of some of the things that David said. We're not going to spend too much time on achieving these items, but I will give some basic recommendations. Then we're going to dive into the concept of the digital twin. We'll talk about that a little more and what that means with all the data that we have and that we've collected, assuming that it is accurate. Again, we're taking that under assumption that we have good data. We're not going to talk about as much how to get there, but what do we do with this data? How can we utilize it? And how can we aggregate all of the different data we have from all of our different sources? Of course, UAS, but also other data sources and work with them together because UAV is just a tool. All right, so the first question, what is your deliverable? Whenever approaching a project, this should be the first thing you ask yourself. First of all, there's probably been some consideration if you're using drones at all on this because again, the UAV is just a tool. It's just a way to get a sensor into the air. No different than any other sensor. Some different considerations, but at the end of the day, it's just another sensor. It's just another methodology of utilizing that sensor. So the basics that we'll talk about is these 3 items right here. Our point cloud, which of course is a 3D virtual model of a mapping area or just our area of interest. Different things we can do with the point cloud. We can classify that point cloud and identify and separate the points based on our discretion, vegetation, bare ground, cars, if we want to remove people or whatever it may be. Everything in our process is derived from this point cloud. So we're taking and we're identifying points, we're creating that cloud, and then we can derive these other items from that point cloud. The main one being some sort of elevation model. We won't dig in too deep about digital surface model versus digital elevation model versus digital terrain model, but just knowing that these are some of the items that we can derive and how will we ultimately use them. Elevation tables, contours, triangular irregular networks, or TINs, whatever you want to call it. We can deliver these rasters and these models in different forms. And then finally, our 2D orthomosaic, our map. So one of the important considerations, of course, is our resolution. What ground sample distance did we collect that? Do we need to collect that? But all of this really comes down to the deliverable. What is your customer expecting? What is your expected outcome? And how are we best going to get there? Another important question to ask yourself, not only what is our deliverable, but what is our application? Just threw a bunch of things on here out of the brain in the past couple of days, but you know, the idea here is, again, thinking about our end result. What are we using this end result for? Are we doing urban planning, design scale mapping, zoning? Are we just managing land with some range or land management, monitoring, mapping of different utilities or pipelines, managing assets, general 3D modeling, high-end 3D modeling for scene reconstruction. That might not apply to as many people in here, but some of the stuff we do here with public safety and law enforcement, or if you're just really trying to get a very accurate 3D model, that's your main item you want. Scene reconstruction. Are you going outside of the stitching a little bit and the photogrammetry and doing some inspections or combining that? Are we working on earth moving or grading, general volume calculation? So again, just trying to get the brain bubbling here a little bit and making sure that you're not only thinking about first your deliverable and the end result, but you know, what are we actually trying to get out of here? And so that moves us to, what do we need to see? Or I like to rephrase that, what do we need to measure? So do we want to see rooftop detail, parking stripes, potholes? You know, are we counting assets? Do we need to be able to identify the difference between those assets and have a little bit better resolution? Are we just simply measuring 3D volumes? Do we need to see brake lines? Are we measuring curb and gutter? Some of these things might define on how we actually fly, so we need to consider that. And again, I'm not going to get into flight technique too much, but you know, just a simple reference there, curb and gutter, we might want to fly a double grid rather than a single grid with photogrammetry to make sure that every single surface, regardless of whether it's going north to south or east to west, is equally measurable and accurate. Again, just what do we need to identify? I mean, even getting down to, we need to be able to pull some items off if we really need a digital elevation model or digital terrain model. Or even, I threw this in there because some of the guys that I've been working with at some mines lately are actually using cameras to find mineral deposits, right? So they need to use a very specific flight methodology, a very specific sensor, probably a multi-spectral or hyperspectral even. So just again, getting the brain bubbling on what do we really need to see in this data at the end. All right, so just talking about a couple of concepts, ground sampling distance, probably familiar with this, but I just like to mention it because in photogrammetry, of course, there's a couple of different methodologies of collecting. Photogrammetry is the most common. LiDAR, of course, is another one. We're not going to talk about too much of the differences there, but when we're talking about photogrammetry, ground sampling distance is very important. And that's just simply the average resolution of those images. How big is a pixel on the ground? So if I'm taking a picture of the ground, how large is that pixel? And we generally measure that in centimeters per pixel or inches per pixel. Just the concept of the lower GSD or the smaller number means that pixel is actually smaller. So we're getting a better resolution. And so one thing I just wanted to show real quick here is a GSD comparison. This is a project I did very recently locally here in Arvada. And just to show you guys a little bit of a comparison here, this is the base resolution that we measured at, which is 4 centimeters GSD. Oh, it has not. Okay. 1 second here. That should do it. All right, so basically what we have here is our final result orthomosaic. I actually did this in a 1.5 centimeter GSD, so just a few inches. But this is the 4 centimeter output ortho. And so if we zoom in and we want to pick out some features, One thing I like to start with is just find something I know the distance of, and it'll give me kind of an idea of what I'm looking at. And so at a 4 centimeter GSD, if I zoom in here, basically it's saying every single one of these pixels is 4 centimeters. Actually show you this in very basic program, Paint. Just a good way to kind of show, I like to actually do this with customers because I can make my grid reflect what I'm looking at. So if I go into my properties here, I am looking at my units as pixels, and I know that each one of those pixels on this particular one is 4 centimeters. So I'm going to find, there we go. You see that all right, David?
Perfect.
All right, great. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just want to get you guys kind of thinking about this and, you know, how does this reflect in our final result? So 4 centimeter GSD. So roughly there's about 37 of these pixels in a 5-foot takeoff pad that I have here. And so this is actually a pretty good resolution. This is considered a pretty good resolution. It's the final ortho, of course, so it would be a little bit better in the individual photos, but kind of give you an idea of what you can see there. If we move on to the next one, one moment here. I'm going to jump this over to an 8 centimeter, so half the resolution.
Same screen.
Yep. All right, can we see that all right there?
No change.
Boy, oh boy, having a good time today. All right, let's do this. There we go. All right, so now we see the 8 centimeter. And of course, we're going to see less. So if we're trying to pick things out like parking stripes or fire hydrants or areas of interest, we're going to see a lot less resolution on these. If I run over, and I'll just do one last one so we're not spending too much more time on this. Let's see here. I'm going to run this up to 6 inches, so a half a foot. So about half the resolution of that one. So obviously we're losing a lot of the detail. For doing simple topos, this is still a god-awful amount more information than we would get with traditional surveying or mapping, but it just gives you an idea. I mean, we're obviously not going to be able to pick out what certain items are on here, types of vehicle, doing really accurate measurements. We're limited to exactly what we have in our data. All right. So let me go back to this guy. All right. So we're back on the presentation, I think.
We're good.
All right. All right, so next question to ask yourself, what is the situation on the ground? If we're going to really maximize the data that we're going to collect, we need to consider these items. What is the area of interest that we're collecting? Very different for this heavy tree coverage in the lower area with photogrammetry. What you see is what you get. We might need to consider something like LiDAR that's going to actually punch through those trees a little bit. Photogrammetry works really great for things like mines and quarries in most situations. And most accuracies, if we're looking at 0.2 feet or higher in our final result, photogrammetry can compete with LiDAR just fine, except for it's not going to punch through trees. But just another consideration to think about. All right, so just moving through this quickly, accuracy, another consideration we need to think about. And of course, we want to talk about relative versus absolute accuracy. Relative being just the relative distance between objects. In this particular picture from Pix4D, a great example, we might be able to measure relatively the height of the roof, the width or length of this house, but it might appear in the middle of the road as far as where it is in the real world. And so relative accuracy is great if you're just trying to get the distance or measurements between items. But if you really wanted to locate or geolocate on the correct place on the earth, we want to talk about absolute accuracy. And so, of course, this is what we're mostly trying to achieve. We want to lay, one survey over another survey, or a design file over a photogrammetry survey, or a base surface under a LiDAR survey. Whatever we might want to do, we need to work towards absolute accuracy. Otherwise, things are just simply not going to line up, and they're not going to be on their real place on the earth. So just another concept to consider. So just in summary, maximizing accuracy. We're not going to spend, again, too much time on this, but quick list. As far as drones go, we'll talk about this in a second. PPK is generally the option that we would recommend. We want to minimize that distance between the flight plan and the base station itself. The further away we are from the base station, if we're using a CORS network, especially, and it's not a base station that's on site, we need to consider, staying under that 30-kilometer mark or so, and making sure, because as we get further away from that base station, we lose some of that accuracy. Make sure we're actually using a high-quality survey-grade base station. Be aware of the elevation influence in your survey. So if your base station is a good amount different in Z from your actual survey, this can affect accuracy as well. Of course, be careful with different coordinate systems. Whenever we introduce a new coordinate system or have to do a transformation, we're going to introduce inaccuracies and problems potentially. So we need to be aware of that. Avoiding environmental obstacles, making sure that we're clear of environmental obstacles that may hinder our ability to collect a GPS. It's a little easier with a drone because we're putting that thing up in the air, but also something to be aware of. And then, of course, establishing control, of course, to prove at a minimum, but also there's been great amount of studies that have shown that even with a PPK-enabled drone, that introducing some of this control sparsely can actually increase our accuracy as well. All right, and so last thing I'm going to fly through before we get into the good stuff is just, again, we need to really consider if we're going to get absolute accuracy, we are going to have to consider GPS correction technology, of course. Ground control points being the fallback that has been around forever. PPK and RTK, which have been around in surveying for a number of years now, kind of the newer kid or the newest kid on the block with drones. And then precise point positioning, which is really bringing us into the space age and taking us forward, and not negating the need, but minimizing the need for a local base station in some ways. So of course, surveying started with PPK, and then with relative positioning, and so you would collect logs on a base, collect logs on a rover, post-process that. Moved on to relative positioning with RTK as we moved forward. Establishing ground control, not something I think any of us are not familiar with, but ground control, using that relative correction in this day and age to establish points and aerial targets that are shot and visible from the air, and kind of showing why we've moved on or at least moved forward from only ground control. If you're doing a couple of 100 acres, 8 GCPs, 10 GCPs is probably sufficient. Doing 3,300 acres, a little more ridiculous. This is not a real GCP layout, but this is a kind of an example that I built to show a customer, like, when you're doing larger surveys, we really want to talk about RTK and PPK. So RTK, even though surveying started with PPK, when it came into the drone world, we're like super excited about RTK, the big new kid on the block. The only issue is it's a little different with drones as your rover rather than a standalone rover that you're walking around with. With a standalone rover, you can kind of do the survey shuffle, the mapping dance, and move away from a tree, move it around a little bit, get that link back to your base station. But if we lose that link, we can't move around or wait with a drone. The drone does not stop, it keeps moving. And so RTK is actually, even though it was the hottest ticket item, we've sort of started to move back in time in the opposite direction that traditional surveying and mapping is done, and that's to go back to PPK. It allows us to not have a connection to that base station. We still can run RTK. This drone that you're seeing on the right, the M210 DJI RTK, is a RTK drone, but I will always have some sort of PPK backup process just to make sure that I'm getting the most out of my data and that I'm maximizing that accuracy. Of course, every drone manufacturer, major manufacturer out there these days has a PPK and RTK drone. And so that's about all I want to spend on that, just kind of giving you guys a brief overview and not completely leaving it out, but that's not what we're here for today. Last thing I'll mention is precise point positioning, very exciting. This is a newer technology that's utilizing the geostationary L-band communication satellites with things like Trimble RTX, where it's a subscription-based service where you do not actually have to have a base station on site. You're using this reference network and a combination of the full constellation, GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Beidou, and all of those satellites in conjunction with the precise satellite orbit and clock corrections of the geostationary L-bands, and actually able to get incredible accuracy, centimeter accuracy, without a base station on site. So you take your base station, you switch it over to a rover, and you only have to have one. And some of these have moved on to drones too. Manufacturers are putting these into drones and taking things like the Trimble Planix. This is the APX20 board you're looking at. And then even third-party manufacturers are building external units like Cloud PPK, another unit we're really excited about, actually, what you're seeing on this drone back here. So yeah, some great technology making its way to drones to get us that good data. But let's talk about taking that data and a couple of the options for processing. Okay, so we have good data. We got good, accurate collection with our control. We have good GSD. We see what we want to see in those pictures. We know that we're only going to get what we can see in those pictures if we're doing photogrammetry. With LiDAR, it's a physical measurement that gives us a point cloud directly. So a little more cut to the chase on that one. But with photogrammetry, we have a couple of options to consider. Of course, a number of these, there's other software out there that can process. These are kind of the big three, in my opinion. Pix4D, the big boy on the block, really shines for its ease of use, its simple workflow, and its accessibility. It's pretty affordable, and it's the learning curve is, it's still photogrammetry, so it can be a little challenging, but it is, in my opinion, probably the most straightforward, simple photogrammetry software out there. Bentley Context Capture is another one known for sort of vertical construction. I don't think we carry Bentley, we carry Pix4D, and then we also carry Metashape. Metashape is kind of the unknown a lot of times in the survey world. Most people know of Pix4D and utilize Pix4D. Metashape is kind of the underdog. In some of the data, it's a little, the challenge is the workflow is a little more difficult, but some of the results with their point clouds are incredible. I'll show a little bit of the differences here today. Little more expensive than Pix4D, a little more of a learning curve, but in the education world, it's kind of the go-to, and in doing studies, and me personally, and working in mines, quarries, and construction for years, Metashape has kind of been the backbone of a few of the manufacturers I've worked for, and as far as point clouds, it's second to none as far as cleanliness. All right, so how do we process this data? Any of those pieces of software, we're going to have a pretty incredible machine. The one we have in our office that we share, we call the Beast. It's about 11K. So it gives us control over the entire process. unlimited processing on that computer, just basically on what it can handle. I don't need an internet connection, but I do have a high cost of entry. We need a top end workstation, and I'm kind of minimizing the cost here. It can go even higher. Like I said, ours is about 25% more than that. Software license, we're looking at 5 to 7 for Pix4D and Metashape. It does require some extensive training and just really investment on your time, and you need to make sure that your data is backed up yourself. Another thought in again, a newer kid on the block than the local processing, really starting to make headway these days, and we'll spend some time in what the data looks like on this side as well, or most of our time today, and that's cloud processing. So cloud processing offers some new things. The platform that we're going to really spend time digging into, and one of kind of our go-to here is Delaware Aerial Intelligence. And so this is just an example. They are not the only processing engine out there. Of course, Esri with their purchase of 3DR Site Scan, some very exciting things on the roadmap for those guys. So we're really, I probably more than anybody am very excited to see where that's going. And of course, all of you guys probably mostly as Esri users, this is something to watch out for. Of course, there's, and so we are an Esri dealer, so we sell that. Is also, we carry, what's another one? Propeller. So another one's out there. We generally carry their hardware mostly, but they do have a great software platform, very intuitive and some really great advanced features, but we'll spend some time talking about Delaware today. So what Delaware does is they actually take all 3 of those engines that I mentioned, the big 3, and they put them under one hood and allow you to have access to any and all of those on command, just depending on what you're doing. So you could use Bentley if you want some vertical construction stuff that does a little better 3D rendering. Pix4D, kind of the go-to that most people understand and are comfortable with the results. And then Metashape, if you're really getting in and you want really clean point clouds, very noiseless results, and great accuracy for not only planning and mapping, but also volume calculations. So Delaware kind of gives you the ability to use them, but have the access to these other ones. So no different than processing locally. You collect the data, you collect the control. It is processed and verified. One of the things that I like about Delaware that's a little different is we're not just sending it to a black box. That scares a lot of people when you talk about cloud processing. I need to be able to sign off on my results. I need to be able to put a check mark and put my reputation on the line. I need to verify the accuracy myself. So sending it off to a cloud is a little nerve-wracking for some people. And I think that's actually made people more hesitant on cloud processing. Delaware's a little different. It's actually human verified, and you can upload your own control, verify that control. But again, most software is doing some of that control stuff, just there's not a lot of humans behind some of the other ones. It does require some good internet access. We have to upload and download that data ultimately, but once that data is in the cloud, it is endlessly shareable and unlimited users. And it actually ends up being a little more affordable. It is pay to play, so the per play cost can seem a little more expensive at $200 to $400 per individual credit. That's kind of ranging between the different softwares out there. I think Delaware is right around $250. Propeller is about double that. Site Scan, their pricing model, I'm actually not familiar with for that. It's a newer product to Esri from 3DR, but we'll have more information on that later. Unlimited, showing kind of the 2 ranges, sort of swinging here from Delaware, which is right around 12,000 per year for unlimited users, unlimited processing, up to Propeller, which is actually a little more than that, 25 for unlimited processing, for about the same thing. And so just a little chart here showing just more information to chew on. Dedicated workstation, software license. Threw in man hours here, probably paying our GIS specialist and processing guys more than 50 an hour, but hey, we go hire a college kid that's doing photogrammetry. This is what we're doing. So we just averaged 1 data set a week, 8 hours average per data set, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. That's including corrections, going back, doing step 1, doing step 2, adding control, running it again, verifying results, all of those things. So averaging about 8 hours per data set, I would say, of man hours to get to those good results. And then cloud processing. I had to throw something else on here because it just seemed a little too good to be true. So I threw the internet cost on there. If you don't have high-speed internet, we could throw another 1,200 on there. But even with that, unlimited processing at 12,000 man hours, half hour most, probably more like 5 to 10 minutes to just upload the images, hit go. And so we're looking at about half the cost. And some of that, of course, is going to sway, probably a little more actually on the local processing, maybe even a little less on the cloud, but gives you just an idea and sort of why this new kid on the block, cloud processing, is really starting to pique some interest. And honestly, that aside, it is a good value just alone. But if we left that completely out of the picture and move on to what I'm really excited to talk to you guys about today, is that what do we do with this data when we get it? All right, so the outputs of this, no matter whether we're doing, and we talked slightly about this, but just kind of just a recircle here, whether we're processing on the cloud or we're processing locally, our outputs are the same. We're looking for that point cloud, which is our first and foremost, our 3D virtual model of our map surface. Our elevation data in whatever format that we need, whether that's an elevation model or a 3D mesh, or just simple contours or elevation table, and our 2D orthomosaic, our map. So of course we can do measurements and calculations on any and all of these items, but it's really kind of bringing them together that brings out the magic, sort of. And this brings us to the subject of today, our digital twin. Wanted to fly through that because I tend to be a little long-winded, and this is where I get really excited, as David likes to say, and start digging in and showing you guys what I don't think most people are even aware of. When we talk about the digital twin, it's really a simple concept, and this illustration shows it. We're collecting data from a number of different sources. It's not just drones. Contrary to popular belief among people that, you know, look at drone guys and they're like, everything's got to be collected with drones. I wholeheartedly, completely, 100% cannot agree with that, because it's just not the best tool for every single job. It is a great tool. It is turning you know, the industry upside down as far as the ease of data collection. But we still have some items in certain situations that are just going to be better. If I'm mapping a 20-mile corridor, I may use a fixed wing versus a multi-rotor, or I may use a MX9 and strap it to a vehicle. If I'm doing a 100-mile corridor, I'm surely not going to use a drone for that if I want that data in any good amount of time. There are still some value for aerial or manned aircraft situations. If we're not able to fly within our line of sight, we need to do a good distance. Talking about some of those longer corridors, you know, helicopters are still used quite a bit in power line and utility inspection and mapping, just because of the area that they can cover. But drones are starting to catch up, and one of those drones that you saw on that front page, a really large fixed wing, the Quantum Systems Tron, 11-foot wingspan, about 3,000 acres in a single 90-minute flight. Pretty incredible. So in the US here, if we're doing 60-minute flights, you're going to get, you know, 2/3 of that. So pretty amazing. Terrestrial scanning, still a place for terrestrial scanning, you know, and if we are, you know, we need to supplement sometimes. If we cannot fly, we might still need to depend on our terrestrial scans as well. But once we get all of this data, and this is just field collected data, right? We still have tons of GIS data that is being built in the backgrounds. We have CAD layers. We have, you know, different point clouds from, you know, maybe a manned survey or a historical survey. Maybe we need to combine our aerial survey and our terrestrial survey together because we weren't able to get all of the data with just one of them. So the idea here is we take all of this data, and really what we're doing is we're forming a duplicate of the real world. Of course, we're looking for that absolute accuracy. So it's located in the actual place it is on the real Earth. It is accurate to whatever our accuracy was that it was able to be achieved based on the ultimate deliverable that we're looking for. But considering that we have good data, we're essentially recreating the world or making a digital twin of this environment. And so let's dive into what that looks like. So going to go over and do a jump into the Delaware platform and show you guys what we're doing there. All right, so here, and this is not dissimilar from other platforms out there. Once you've kind of worked on one, the navigation is not that different, right? We load up, we have a map view of the world. We have a number of markers for our different projects. Delaware in particular, we're laid up on the side here, on the left side, and I have all of my different projects here and demos within our Frontier company. And so as I go into these, this GSD comparison that I showed you guys, we have a little breadcrumbs here. So still Frontier Precision, Gen Center, which is just the location here in Arvada. And then what survey am I flying with? On this, I was doing a demo of a Phantom 4 and an M210. So I have both of those surveys. I can switch between those surveys. I can do things like compare and contrast those surveys, but just to give a little tour here, I have my map layers. One of the things I like to talk about when I mention cloud, not only cloud processing, but really cloud hosting of data, is I call things like this, it's almost like the Dropbox or Box for surveying and mapping. And what I mean by that is where Box or Dropbox is a simple way to share files, organize those files into folders, collaborate, work on versions of those files between different people in different parts of the world instantly. We're kind of looking at the same thing when we jump into the idea of the cloud as far as GIS data. So ArcGIS Online is another example. I mean, this is not an unfamiliar situation for you guys with data processing and drones. It kind of just takes it a step further. And so it's just another way to host, not only process, but to host data from a number of different sources and interact with that data with other individuals in our organization or customers or whatnot. So in here, we have just the way they happen to organize it is we have site data and survey data. Let's see here. I have my different layers. So I have my orthomosaic, I have my DSM raster. I can interact and change my opacity and my different coloring on this. When I go into these, I have more information that I can interact with over here. I see my ground sample distance on this particular one, 1.2 inches per pixel. I can do things like add comments and collaborate with other individuals. So if I want to come in here and make a mark, I can add a comment, say at, they're gonna let me do that with my own name. There we go. Please check this out. So what I'm seeing customers do with this and companies is using this as a method not only to interact with each other on projects, but also to interact with their customers. Like I said, Delaware, you get unlimited users, so I can invite as many people as I want. I can change their access. I can control what they see, what they're able to do, whether they have edit rights or view rights or upload and processing rights, management, user management rights, all kinds of things. So just kind of showing you guys a couple of things, and we'll dig into that a little bit deeper. So I just have a way to interact with my data. I can do basic volume calculations. So for example, again, on this, I could do a volume calculation. So if I, obviously we probably wouldn't do this on this particular thing, but volume calculation of my truck. I can go here, Can choose what my source is for the file. So my digital surface model is going to be my source. And this is very important because I can import multiple sources. So if I have a base layer, if I have an as-built for a building or a stockpile or whatever it may be, I can use different sources for different things. I can use different methodologies for actually calculating that volume. So this one is basically triangulated or interpolated surface. So just whatever the edge of that surface is, it's going to interpolate the surface below it. This is a great example. If I was on a stair or a step like this, probably wouldn't want to use this. I would want to use some sort of model to use as my base, but just kind of gives you an idea. So I'm not limited to just looking at my data and sharing that data, but I can actually interact with it and calculate volumes and do other things as well. Of course, they're not trying to replace the systems that you're working on. We are not going to replace ArcGIS. We are not going to replace Trimble Business Center. We're not going to replace CAD with these items, but it is a way for us to interact, see that data in a simple manner without GNSS or GIS expertise. So this is really great for management and clients and things of that nature. Can change all kinds of things, style attachments. I'm not going to get into that too much, but you guys kind of get the idea. All right, so that's just kind of showing the layers and different annotations. And I'll show this on a different side of the platform as well shortly. But then I also have access to all my raw data. So all of my raw data, when I'm looking at this, let's go to my folder view. It's all here. So not only do I have my results, but I get, like they give you a photogrammetry report in here that actually is an output directly. I use Agisoft to power this. Let me show you guys this. This gives me my actual accuracy report in Agisoft or Pix4D or Bentley or whichever one I actually used. So that is very helpful. Switch back to Del Air. I have my output file, so I have my 3D model, my OBJ, and then all of the individual JPEGs of the 3D model. I have my point cloud in LAS format. I have my DSM in a raster TIFF format. I have my orthomosaic in a 2D GeoTIFF format. So the idea here is, again, not going to replace all the systems that you're working on, but it's a simple way to process that data, get good outputs without having photogrammetry expertise, interact with that data, and then, of course, if you need to download that data and take it to another platform, you can do that as well. So pretty cool stuff. And so this not only is going to be an output, but it's also going to be a repository for my raw data. So if I come in here and I want to go to, let's see here. So I have my original photos. So this is a good example if I can find that, that little item in the parking lot that I flew. Where are we at here? Go. So I have my original data at the original resolution. I can go in and reference that. I can still even add comments to this. So if I'm not able to see something in my photogrammetry results, I can interact and use that data. I can download it. So it's basically a backup system and storage as well. So pretty cool stuff. Can order analytics. Number of analytics I can order right from the platform that are quite useful here. Did I hide that? Let me actually show my layer again. So I'm actually looking at ortho, image locations. Okay. So I can do things like order analytics. So if I don't like my photogrammetry results, I can generate photogrammetry with another engine if I wanted to. A couple of things in here for agriculture, they all kinds of off-the-shelf analytics. Won't spend too much time going through this stuff, but yeah, they're pretty cool. I mean, definitely get in and vegetation, vegetation cover, microplot vectorization. So if you're working in the world of agriculture, agricultural or seed development and testing, plant height, plant gap, scouting maps, vectorization of rows. Pretty cool stuff, and very, very useful. Field production. So even, again, not going to spend too much time on this, but lots of good stuff. Mining aggregates, off the shelf stockpiles. So they will calculate stockpile volumes for you. DTM, this is actually a free analytic now on Delair, where you can actually launch and run your own DTMs and remove objects from the surface model. And then it gives you an additional DTM output, which is pretty cool. Haul road vectorization, so they digitize and extract geometry of haul roads. I'll show that on the other side of the platform in just a moment here. Safety, these are more, again, for mining and aggregate. So this is really according to like MSHA standards. How is the mine doing just with a picture, using that 3D data? How can we take that and utilize that to see if we're in compliance, bridging compliance or out of compliance completely, and also, of course, safety. Keep us safe. Make sure that our berm heights are at least half the height of the largest vehicle axle on site. Things of that nature. Power and utilities, really great classification items here, and I'll dig into some of these on a demo. So I'll actually skip over this and actually show this in a moment. And then general stuff, we can do a change map between multiple surveys to quickly see what has moved. Have we moved some dirt? Have we graded? Have we changed something altogether? One of the big things that drones are used for is not only completing a job, but for liability and protection. It's a picture of the site on the day that we flew, right? So seeing a change map and saying, the contractor is getting blamed for moving a tree. He's like, no, that tree was already gone. I did not move that. Generating contour lines, on-command contour lines. So any user is able to launch and run their own contour lines. So a number of different outputs. I can name them, give my elevation interval, whether I want it in US survey feet, international feet, or meters. I can export Esri shapefile, DXF, or GeoJSON. And then what am I going to use as my source? I'm only seeing this because I only have one elevation model in this survey. So pretty cool stuff. Object detection can detect objects. So there's a number of different items in here. They can do vehicle detection, classification. And again, Delair, what's really cool about it is they have a human check on a lot of these analytics. It will do basic classification very quickly, but you can also request for no additional charge that a service operator actually verifies that if you're having some issues, and they'll go in and basically verify that for you. So again, different regions, these are my polygons that I did not name. So I can choose that polygon and then request that it be classified. So I could request that it only classify a certain object of the site. I can use those polygons to define those areas of interest. All right, so I want to kind of get into a little bit more of the stuff on what we can do by actually jumping into some different verticals and showing you business units and what that kind of looks like.
30 to 45 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So, so what we're seeing here is just a simple survey of a site. I did it for a demo. And so where it really jumps out is when I bring in different data. So this is great. I have UAV data. As I mentioned, Delair can, of course, process that data for us, but this is already processed, and we're not going to talk about that too much more, but just once we have that data. So what I'm going to actually do is jump back over to my world map, and I'm going to dive into one of the things that I really think shows the power of this system, and just getting data in whatever form it may be in the cloud. And that is on an oil and gas model for a tank that we utilize a number of different data sources for. So what you're looking at right here is the point cloud derived from believe this is from LiDAR. Yeah. So one of the telltale signs from LiDAR is I'm actually seeing tops of trees and I'm getting some surface underneath. I do have a, I don't know, maybe this is the photogrammetry side of it. So I'm seeing some black holes there where there was some vegetation. So I'd probably say this is actually the photogrammetry point cloud. And so what we're doing here is the project is to build a new oil tank on this area right here. So photogrammetry survey to start. And then we imported a CAD file of the design for the oil tank itself. And so what this is doing is it's actually bringing in georeference data and putting it all together on its real place on the earth. So I'm seeing my photogrammetry point cloud here, and now I'm also seeing my 3D CAD model of where that tank is going to go, located, and the build of what that tank is going to look like. On this, I still have access to all of my items. I can make annotations, I can collaborate, I can discuss it. And so after that tank was built, we came in and we did a LiDAR scan of the tank. And so we laid that over the photogrammetry survey. And so now what we're looking at is a LiDAR scan of the tank, classified. We removed all of the ground. So all we have in that point cloud of the tank is the tank itself. We can interact with that with a number of different tools. So we can look at intensity. Let's see, I don't know if intensity was used on this one here. We can look at elevation. It's just one class. So I'll show the LiDAR stuff a little bit different on another demo where we can interact with that. But basically what we have here is we have our LiDAR scan. And what this allows us to do, once we have all of this data in one platform, is we can do things like change detection. So just like we showed on the change detection where I mentioned where we can do object changing from one time to the other between two different drone surveys. On this, we just ran change detection between the CAD design file of the 3D model of the design of the tank and the actual tank LiDAR itself. And so what we end up with is a change map. And we can classify that. Anything that is exactly the same is going to be green. Anything that is completely different is going to be red. And so what we have here is a little bit of grading. Generally green and blue is going to be pretty okay. Red, what we're seeing is just some hail damage, pretty normal and expected on a tank in this area of the country. But if we actually turn around this model, we're going to see something else. We're going to see that there is a problem with this door. So whether it is maintenance inspections, whether it is just making sure that the tank was built to spec, it's a very powerful ability to have to be able to bring in all of this data, say, this is what I designed, this is what you built, here are the differences. The data speaks for itself. And so we see that this door was either, it looks like it may have been, sorry, my camera view is in the way of the zoom tool there. Yep, so basically what I have is I'm just showing that this door is a little bit offset. Either it was tried to be pried open or it was left open or there's something wrong with the build itself. So just a good example on integrating and aggregating all of this data together into one nice slick platform and being able to communicate it. So very, very cool stuff there. All right, so so that is what I really wanted to show you there. Okay, and of course we have all of our raw data still. So again, if we want to import, this is the LAS file of the that was developed on the change map, the actual LiDAR of the tank, the point cloud from the photogrammetry survey, and then the 3D model of the tank as well. So good stuff, and all accessible, all downloadable, and just a repository for all of the data on a single project in one place. Very, very powerful. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is kind of the classic side of Del Air. They've done a number of updates recently, and so even as of yesterday. So I'm going to actually show you the system that is kind of what they're building from and integrating, and most of this stuff is or will be integrated in the next couple of months here. But I'm going to jump over to the cloud .delair.ai, which is what Del Air started with. This actually came from the company that I started with in drones, which was Airware. And this side of the platform was developed by a company called Redbird. Now those assets are owned by Del Air, and they are developing and integrating this side of the platform completely over. And the integration is almost complete, but a little more comfortable on this side. And I think it kind of tells a good story. So I'll show you guys some things on this side. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a road construction demo site. And so what we have here is three different things. We have a project layer that is a CAD file that was imported. We have two different drone surveys. So if I move the screen. There we go. All right, so just a little tour here, not very much different. Breadcrumbs showing the company, the location, and the actual survey, I guess you could call it, or you know, file that we're looking at. And so they're really putting all of these together. And so you see this in the new version of Del Air. It's just kind of the same thing, where we have our different surveys, this being a project design layer and these two being aerial drone surveys, all in the same place. So if I zoom in, and let's say I do an elevation profile, and I immediately get an elevation profile, and I can export that in a shape or DXF to take it to other software, or I can just simply get the information. If I just need to understand what we're looking at, I can get that there. So a number of other things I can do, you know, of course, distance measurement, area, know an area, elevation, just click on an elevation and see what the elevation is. Again, this is in that design layer. I can, as I showed you, do the elevation profile. I can do a simple volume calculation based on a polygon, and I can do a volume differential between the polygon in this survey and that same polygon in a previous survey. So we'll talk about that a little right now. One of the things I like to kick this off with is that elevation profile that I showed you. If we measure, I'm still on, oh, I'm just on elevation, sorry. So elevation profile. So of course, as you saw, if I do this in this view, it's the elevation profile of that design layer. However, I can go into this compare AB. And what that does is allows me to see, and of course, absolute accuracy is required for this. We're lining up just a model of the road and the drone survey that we did. And so we can basically compare those two. I'm still loaded on my design layer here. So that's my main layer here on the right. And then I've loaded a drone survey here. And so if I do that same elevation profile now, what I'm going to see is I'm going to see two profiles. I'm going to see, of course, my design layer profile, and I'm going to see a blue line that is showing my actual survey profile. And so again, I'm able to export both of these in Shape or DXF to compare and contrast. So just an easy way to interact with the data. This is scaled to the height that we're at. And so we can not only do elevation profiles, but we can do areas and compare those, volumes, compare those, elevation, compare those. So very, very powerful to utilize multiple data sets together, and not only multiple drone data sets, but design layers, project files, and drone and photogrammetry or LiDAR or whatever gives you your point cloud. All right, so another tool just to dig in a little more to the collaboration is these annotations. So I showed you a bit of this on the other side, but just to give you an idea, I'm going to actually jump over to another project that we have here, which is a quarry demo site. And even if this isn't your business unit, all of this is applicable. We can use this for any number of things, both to interact with customers and each other. And so, for example, can use annotations to identify an area of interest. Probably would draw the toes of the pile there a little more accurately, but in interest of time, I can add tile or add text. Pile number 1. Could add it to a group, which I'll talk about in a second. I can add a tag. And I can add followers. So I could add a follower to this, or I can actually communicate and say, at Phil, please move this pile and combine with pile 2, or whatever it may be. I send that, person gets a notification, and they can respond to that. If they click on that notification, they could be on another part of the site. They click on the notification. I don't know if it's, well, let me just click on another one. Okay, so it's not coming through right now, that notification. But the idea is that you click on that and it geolocates you and brings you to that location on site. They can resolve it. So as you can imagine, this could be used for any number of things. Of course, moving a pile as I showed here, but it also could be used for workforce management, safety and maintenance management. So one of the things you can do is add groups. So if I added groups, for example, safety issues, I did safety issues, I did subgroups of safety issues active and safety issues resolved. And so same idea, I could come in here, I could categorize this as a safety issues active. Right. I can, then if I go over into my markers layer, I can see I have safety issues active, right? I have a couple of others that are just still categorized, but let me check that off and you'll see safety issue number 1. And one of the cool things I can do, any annotations that I make, not only can I export those annotations in a shape or DXF, but I can also just export them in a simple PDF file. So I could use this to identify a number of areas of interest. And in this example, safety issues, and I want somebody to go out and verify and resolve those safety issues. So I can export a work order essentially with those annotations. They of course can log in on the platform and see them directly there, but they can have sort of a checklist in paper form if they want. Any of these annotations can be exported not only in that PDF, shape, or DXF, but also a point cloud LAS, a CSV, or an HTML, and in a number of size pages. So, and you can do groups of annotations. So I could just say I want safety issues, and I export. I then can send an email to that. And then when they're done resolving those issues, they go throughout their day. They change that from safety issue active to safety issue resolved. It immediately changes to resolved. Then they can export their annotations again at the end of the day, and their, the manager can actually see that all of the safety issues that are still active and all of the safety issues that have been resolved. So, I mean, pick your poison. You can identify a number of uses for this, pretty much anything across a site. It's just a way to communicate, collaborate, and share information as well as actual data from within the platform. So pretty exciting stuff. Please feel free, David is manning the questions. So if you guys have any questions or want to see anything more, please feel free. Anything over there, David? We're good? All right, cool. So just to give you guys a little bit of a tour of this, and again, same thing on the other side of Del Air, just a little more interactive on my part. I haven't spent as much time on the release that was released just last week, so just wanted to show you on this side. So orthomosaic view, of course. Let me hide some of these items. Orthomosaic. Del Air does something that's a little bit different, which is pretty cool, called a slope map, where a surface model that we're used to seeing is giving you colorization based on elevation. So if I wanted to recolorize this, I'm seeing all yellow here, so I'm working within a pretty small subset of elevation. I can recalculate that and say, you know, redo your coloring based on this area. But this is just giving it based on elevation. Still doesn't make it that easy, and just because my elevation is lower doesn't mean that it's not part of that pile. So rather than basing the coloration on elevation, what slope map does is it bases it on slope. So horizontal is in white, vertical Z is in black, and then it grades based on the slope of that surface in relation to the points below and above it. So pretty cool, just helps things pop out, and very, very powerful tool for identifying items and especially stockpile management. Change map allows you to run a quick change map. This is what I showed on the other side of the platform, but I didn't run it. So this is just simply showing one survey versus the other. So this is the July and the January surveys shown next to each other. Just a quick view. Now, actually, this feature is much more intuitive and much more advanced in the newer side of the platform. Once you do run that, it just takes about 5 or 10 minutes to run, so I didn't want to run it. But it actually gives you volumes, allows you to convert these to annotations. It does a lot of really cool stuff, so pretty neat. All right. And then lastly, I just kind of want to spend a little bit of time on analytics. And so I showed you some of the analytics. And again, the newer side of the Delaware platform is even far more advanced than this, being able to do things like automated DTM and classification, things like that. But this sort of shows the same idea and the results that we can get. So in our markers area, which is what I'm in right now, I have my GCP, my blasting safety issues. These are what I added. But if I go back a level, I start to see my analytics. So of course we can annotate a polygon ourselves. Right, we can calculate volumes, same as what you saw on the other side of the platform. So I could say interpolated and calculate that volume. And then so basically I can circle all my piles, which you can pretty much do in most platforms, identify a volume of that pile, definitely a little more advanced. Delaware has, I think 5 to 7 different methodologies, and one of them even being manual, to where if you removed 100, cubic yards of that material, you could adjust that. Or if you weren't able to fly a certain section, you could go survey that and put in your own volume yourself. And then we can convert that volume to a stockpile, and then that shows up in our stockpiles layer as a self-service stockpile, okay? What they do as well, though, is they actually do stockpiles for you. So there is an automated function that recognizes those stockpiles, and then a human actually goes, verifies the totals of those stockpiles, exports the volumes from the platform, and verifies that in a third-party GIS platform for volumes, and compares and contrast to the months before, which is definitely necessary because photogrammetry data can be a little swaying at times, even with the same survey. So, all right, so what you get in that result is all of these stockpiles, and then simply you just come in, you identify the material type, and then export a stockpile report. So that's their stockpiles feature. Imported layers in the same fashion. Now, this is actually able to be done on the Delaware AI side, the newer side that I showed you, by the user themselves, where we had to do it. In the old days, they would upload a file to another platform, and then we would do that, but now you can do this all yourself. So things like 2D information that you might want to interact with your 3D map. So let me hide the slope map. Right, so I can have my land register parcels. This is just some examples. Authorization, perimeters, exploitation, electrical networks, water. I mean, name it. Any surface file that you have in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions now in the Delaware AI newer side can be imported and just laid over your survey. So that is something to bring up as well. If you process data on Delaware, not only do you get access to the output files for that, but you're getting unlimited users, and you can import up to 500 gigabytes per data set of additional data. So if you have additional point clouds or design files or design layers, or you go fly a LiDAR that you want to replace the photogrammetry surface with. You can import all of those layers yourself, user commanded instantly, and lay them in this platform and interact with that as well within that platform. So just an example of some of those 2D layers that were imported. Contour lines, pretty straightforward. Same thing on the other side, contour lines. The platform delivers contour lines at a specific interval, but you can also command your own contour lines. So you have your predefined, and then as I showed you on the other side of the platform, you can also define your own contours, and you can export your own contours as well. So any user can interact with the system, and if one department wants 10-foot contours and another department wants 2-foot contours, each department can do that individually without having to download that data completely and interact with it on their own platform, which is very useful. Haul roads, I'll just show this really briefly. It just kind of shows the power of this 3D data. And this gets into the classification as well, but this is just an example on a mine or quarry, right? So safety, what we do on this is we import the largest truck on site and use that as a ruler to classify a number of different items. So all of my blocks on site, these are every single individual block along the haul road, and it's classifying that. MSHA standards define that the blocks on the side of a haul road must be at least the height of the largest truck on site's axle, so half the height of the wheel. So all that's doing is saying, that the 3.8 feet is our register. This is a very large truck, about an 8-foot tall wheel. And so it's saying, are we in compliance? So what this is a good example of is if these guys wanted to move into a larger haul truck, right? They wanted to upgrade their mine site. And so instantly within, just a few minutes, we can see very quickly where we're at. So immediately what this could be done, this could be shared with the site manager that could go out and they would need to replace, or you could make annotations, of course. So I could annotate polygon and say, replace these berms today, or replace these blocks today, or by next week. So I can use, again, that data that they've given me and my 3D data to assign work and getting that from just the insight that I'm getting from the site itself. And then same thing with the berm heights according to the largest truck on site. So if they have berms and not blocks, it's that. And then things of that nature. So haul roads, very simply, this is a big one for quarries, not as big. I mean, maybe on a larger construction project. I've done some projects with really, really large construction firms that actually build their own concrete plant on site. Because of the project size, so this might be applicable to that. But haul roads, again, based on the largest truck on site, it identifies the haul roads, it identifies all the cross fails. What is the slope and drainage going to do on that haul road? What is my grade? Is it less than 10%, which is going to allow me to travel at the optimum speed? Or am I making those trucks work harder? These very large trucks with the 8-foot wheels, 10-foot wheels, they measure gas consumption in minutes per gallon, not miles per gallon. So you can imagine very, very important to increase efficiency. So it's just giving them a view on site on where they might be able to increase that efficiency. And in terms of efficiency, this is really on the largest truck on site. Is this a two-way? Is it a one-way? Is it an intersection? Is this a danger area? Even if it's one-way, is this a little narrower than we would recommend? So just again, more ways to utilize that data and maximize what we're doing with that data by taking different items from that. Just because I mentioned it before, I mean, Esri Site Scan has tons of this same kind of stuff, really, really great features. And then, of course, Del Air, which I'm showing you, has them as well. All right, so, and I guess I kind of lied. I do want to show one more thing, David, if that's all right. How are we doing on time? We're doing all right? All right, cool. Okay, so wanted to just jump back over to the current side of the platform and I mean, all that stuff I just showed you is available here. They've just added some new features, so I wanted to make sure I was comfortable here today. But one thing I do want to show you is some of the classification, the point cloud classification that, of course, we can do in some of our third-party platforms. But you know, sometimes our best use of time is to not spend time classifying a point cloud on a huge project, and we want to kind of send it off. And we're willing to pay a small nominal fee to have that done. So what I'm going to do is just show a power and utilities LiDAR distribution line that we measured, and sort of how that classification changes what we're doing. So what I'm looking at right now, this looks like the flight path that it's highlighting. Yeah, so drone trajectory is on here, so it just shows the flight path that we did. This is a reference file of the area we wanted to collect that was used in defining that flight path. So again, this is just all the information that we've put in here. Excuse me. This was flown with a Del Air LiDAR, very large LiDAR bird. So it integrated the flight plan into here and the trajectory. And so we have those that amount of information. If I jump over into my 3D environment, I have my point cloud. And so this point cloud is, we can interact with it in the same way that we could interact with it in any point cloud viewing or editing software. And so actually go to here. All right, so what we're seeing here, if I zoom in a bit, is, where'd my view go? Okay, so I have my view of my entire area, and then I can obviously zoom in. I think my mouse wheel is set to a little high here. Yeah, my zoom is a little crazy right now. Okay, so goodness gracious, what is going on? Let me just use my computer screen here instead of my mouse. There we go. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is the vectorized conductors and lines. And so I can go into my elevation and see that. I can actually look at my intensity. I'm going to look at my other layers so you can actually see what I'm looking at here. Go. Okay, so I have my my lines here, and this has been classified. So what you're actually seeing here is, let me actually go to my classes here. And so this has been classified. So we've identified vegetation, we've identified power lines, we have identified structures in the area. But one thing we can also identify with that, and if I can find a little more, find some better vegetation coverage here. Is we're able to define our vegetation encroachment. So when I zoom in here, I can actually see, and this is the same, is a change map. It's just setting a threshold of altitude and distance from our power lines. And so we're able to see areas that might be a problem, either are a problem or in the near future could be a problem. So just giving you an idea of classification in here, and this is just done by Del Air. And so in the same manner, I could go into my, let's see here, power and utilities and vegetation encroachment, and I could launch that. So basically what that gives you, it's showing here, text collision report, vector collision report, and a risk point cloud and risk raster displayed in the platform itself. And again, this can be done, this is not just for power and utilities, this can be done for any number of things. You know, you can request it manually if you have a special request, because there is a human behind the scenes. It's not just sort of doing its best, you know, with quote unquote machine learning. There is a human behind it making sure that we're good. So this is a good example of the encroachment here. We're not quite too close yet, but it's showing that this could be a problem in the near future. All right. So that puts us at about 10:30. Just wanted to really dig in and show you guys some of the stuff that we can do with this data and being able to interact with that and just sort of maximizing the use of the data that we have. UAV data is giving us more data than we've ever had before. Of course, notwithstanding scanners, you know, laser scanners and things like that. You know, we're getting millions and millions of points. And so taking those points and utilizing them in new and different ways is coming up all the time. So, yeah. So at that, I really would like to open it up. And David, if you have anything you want to cover or anything we should dive into a little more, that's what I got today.
So Jackie, if you'd like to unmute, or if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hands, jump in. Love to hear what you guys have for takeaways. Was there anything that you saw, you learned that you didn't know before? This is your guys' workshop. This is your time. I can see your names on there, so don't make me call on you.
Or anything you'd just like to see more of or ask some questions of, whether that be processing or data collection or data utilization.
You might compare and contrast a little, because we're also Pix4D trainers. Is this something that, how do these fit together? What are some of the other cloud-based, you know, workflows? You know, the whole idea is that there are lots of different ways to get to the deliverables.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I did mention that I did not go through is the whole Agisoft versus Pix4D. I'm sure that neither of those manufacturers would like us to discuss that, but you know, we're very open here. We love Pix4D. It is the most straightforward and easy way to get into processing data. You know, but there are other things out there. You know, a lot of the cloud-based processing platforms, most of them are probably using Pix4D in the background. We at Airware, or Redbird, then Airware, then Delair, really focused on Agisoft quite a bit. And I'll show you some of the differences here, just in my opinion. And again, this is really depending on your ability processing, but just throwing these directly at the platform and just saying, hey, go with the default settings and just show me what you got. What we have found is that Agisoft has a little bit cleaner of point clouds. You can still get this in Pix4D, but it just takes a little bit more work. So I'll just jump into my Gen Center demo here that I collected the other day. This is a great example. And I think I even have, let me see here. Well, actually, I think I have one that is both Pix4D and, yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is actually a project that my colleague Jay Haskamp and some of our other colleagues did as a test. This is currently being worked on and will be released as a white paper soon. But basically what they did is they compared a number of different data collection techniques or survey methods, and then brought that in, and we used, at least for the aerial part of it, for the LiDAR, for the Pix4D processing. We utilize for the collection this actual system you're seeing behind here, except for we had a Sony RX1, R2, and the cloud PPK system for post-processing. And so these are the two results that I'll show you. And then we also did the MX9 vehicle-based LiDAR scanner and traditional surveying methods. So pretty cool. That you'll find that on our YouTube channel, which I also would like to mention. That's youtube.com/FPI mapping, Frontier Precision Incorporated Mapping on YouTube, or just search for Frontier Precision. Lots of really great information on there, including this study where he actually breaks down and shows resulting accuracy and all kinds of things. But what we use Deliverables for is to really compare the state plane coordinate system metashape processing. And do I not have the Pix4D on here? I might not have the Pix4D on here. All right, well then let me change directions on that. Well, so I can do,
You can show the results file.
yeah, maybe I'll do that. Let's see. I think I actually have. I'm just going to open Pix4D and show you guys the difference. So on here, I have the, where are we at? Gen Center demo. So this is the same data set. And I'll go into my base layers. And I'm actually going to take a look at my point cloud. So I'm going to go into my 3D. Just want to show you guys sort of what the point clouds look like in the resulting surveys. Okay, so we have that one there. And then I have Pix4D open. Oh, it's not going to do it either. Goodness gracious. All right, so what you're going to see in here is all right. Maybe. And so one of the things you'll notice about this point cloud, when we get down to the road surface, we're really, really clean. Okay, so very clean point cloud, very good curb and gutter. I did a double grid on this, not a lot of noise. Okay, a little bit from, maybe people walking down the sidewalk, but overall, a very good result in the point cloud, very clean. It is photogrammetry, so you will see that there is some draping going on and some interpolation of a surface. We can't see under a car. What we see in the photo is what we get. Let me see here. Since this is not working, I'm going to just show you guys Pix4D point cloud. It's a different project, but you get the idea. Same collection technique, but then when we go into the cloud, actually look at the ray cloud here.
In the slide deck, you can also show them the.
They say don't do it live, right? All right. So let me just go to the results and show you guys what I was looking at here. So pause that for a quick second. Again, feel free to fire off the questions if you guys have any. Just navigating over here to PowerPoint real quick. Still no questions, huh, David? Everybody's silent today.
They've been overwhelmed.
All right, here we go. So let me share this.
We're still on your screen.
See the case study there?
No, we're on Delaware screen.
Oh, goodness.
There we go.
So we don't really have time to go through the whole study here, but if we don't have any questions, maybe we do. So what we did here, this is just that actual project that I showed you in Delaware. I'm just going to show you the results. Apparently, not following the rule, don't do it live, had some technical difficulties loading it. So basically here, the scope, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Let me just go down to the slide that I really care about. But we just to show you, this is a system we use, Cloud PPK, Sony RX1R2 camera. You know, definitely curved road instead of a straight road, curb and gutter, you know, local coordinate system. So pretty much through all of the challenges at it. So we cover, and this is real, I would definitely look this up on YouTube because Jay breaks this down far better than I will. But the idea here is that we compared data collection times. We compared, you know, larger projects in that. So just showing, you know, sort of how all of these collections compare, and then checking and validating that data, doing it according to, you know, 500ths, a tenth, and a fifth of a foot. So, and then laid all of these together, and how do they actually compare total station to GNSS X section. And then we took each of those methodologies and compare and show local photogrammetry. We use Pix4D. So I can probably go into the presentation and show you. And this really displays some of the differences here. 37 out of 85 checks fell within that 600ths number, and so not very good on the photogrammetry. We did fly just a single grid. We're redoing this with a double grid, so it might increase that a little bit. 61% fell within a tenth, but you know, 98% fell within a fifth. So, you know, very, very important consideration when you're doing photogrammetry. Knowing what our deliverable is really matters. And this is with the Pix4D stuff. So cloud-based, we used Agisoft Metashape for. So just showing you some of the items. And actually, if I go back, that will show a picture of the point cloud. Okay, so see the point cloud there. I mean, you know, this is likely good enough for, you know, 80% of our situations, but you see there is a bit more noise. We can interpolate that surface based on the average, but you are going to see a bit more noise there on the Pix4D side. So again, depending on your deliverable, depending on your need, there is option A. And then if we go into the Metashape side of things, point cloud, just a lot smoother. And this is really kind of the difference, in my opinion, that you're going to see. Now with Pix4D, we can do a lot of things to remove points or interpolate and smooth the surface. We can remove photos that are contributing to noisiness in the point cloud. So we still have a lot of control because we're doing it ourselves. But Agisoft, just sort of, you know, by the book, out of the box, is going to get a little bit smoother on the point cloud side. Accuracy wise, 62% on that 600ths, so a little bit better there. Actually moved quite a bit here, so 76% on a tenth, so that's a good, you know, 10% better or a little more, and then 96% on the fifth, which is interesting because the Pix4D side was actually more accurate on a fifth. So now we did have a couple of outliers, but kind of gives you an idea there. Aerial LiDAR comparison. So of course we're punching through some of the trees here. We're getting 10.2 million points. So a lot less points actually than with the photogrammetry, but they are physical measurements. So instead of an interpolated or deduced calculation from pictures, we're physically shooting a beam of light, measuring that distance, and then calling that a point. And we are doing that, 100,000 or 200,000 times a second. So we do need cameras for colorization, but we get some foliage penetration, which is great. So we can actually get a real surface, as you can see right here underneath those trees, which with photogrammetry you just would not have. So when we analyze this, 83% of our checks fell within that 600, 88% fell within a tenth, and then 96% actually the same as Agisoft, and a little less than Pix4D, oddly, within that fifth. So still very good. We're still above 95% on all of these methods. So pretty cool stuff. So just a little comparison there. And, again, one of the things I liked about the Delaware platform, that they allow you to sort of use the platform of processing that you want, and integrate all of those together. If you've already processed data or you're processing data yourself, still can be a great platform to just import that data and interact with it. That's where it really gets fun, huh? All right, so MX9, this is where it gets awesome. Oh, it's making me go through these. Okay, so mobile LiDAR, MX9. This is the upper echelon of the top. So 55 million points. We drove that in about 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and collected all that data in that amount of time. So pretty wild stuff. Most detail, I mean, we're getting cracks in the roads. We're getting all of this. It's not just an interpolated surface. It's getting everything. Definitely the cleanest data set, but there's a reason why it's the price it is. But you're getting the real deal. And it's the most accurate without constraining the GCPs. Of course, we have these, Planix boards and different boards in these, the Trimble Planix boards to help, and either with precise point positioning or PPK, with very little or no control, we're getting pretty accurate there. So also taking imagery from the camera, this is just a view. In processing, of course, we have to remove this little guy and the vehicle. So let's see how I did. 88% within 600s, 94% within a tenth, 100% within a 20th, or within a fifth, sorry. It doesn't get better than 100, I guess, right? So yeah, pretty amazing piece of gear. So just kind of laying all of these together, the accuracy validation. As you can see, we're in the 96th percentile for every single technique we used for a fifth of a foot. So if that's the accuracy you're looking for, you can get it with photogrammetry and what you have right now. Where the other items really come in is the detail and being able to see more than what we can see in that photo. So with the LiDAR, similarly, when you're walking through a forest and you see the sun rays coming through a tree, even the thickest of trees, light can go through or get around the smallest of spaces and pick up some of that data below. And if we're looking at the local and cloud, I mean, this is kind of, it should be really Pix4D versus Agisoft, because there is no difference whether you're doing it in the cloud or locally. Seeing the difference in accuracy here is pretty substantial. I do believe that if we flew a double grid, these would be a little bit closer together. But single grid is what most people are flying these days, and so pretty substantial. Nearly a 20% difference in accuracy at 600ths, and about a 15% or a 15% at a tenth. But a little more work to get there, a little higher price, and what are we doing this according to, right? We did this with PPK and no control points. If we introduce control points and tie those in, then we're obviously going to increase that accuracy substantially on any of these. Yeah. So that's that.
So Phil, thank you. I think in review, my goal out of this was to really talk about the things that we can do with data. We spent a lot of time on how to get the data. It's really about the deliverable at the end of the day. What can you do with it once you have it? Takeaways for you guys at Frontier Precision. We are pretty product agnostic, software agnostic. Our goal is to figure out, what is that deliverable and how do you achieve it? So the things that we want to bring to the table. Would love to talk to you if you guys have any questions. Do not hesitate to contact me. I can put you in touch with Phil or anybody else on the UAV team or on the mobile LiDAR, the scanning team, or the survey or any part of our geospatial. If you guys have any questions, our real focus in this is on service. How do we help you get to that end result that you guys need? So with that, Jackie, if you would like to open it up. If we do not have any additional questions, I'd like to say thank everyone for your time. It's one thing none of us have. So really, really appreciate, hope it was valuable. Jackie said this will be recorded, or if you want individual slides or anything, again, do not hesitate to contact me.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a question out loud or use the Q&A to post it. This was super helpful. It makes me want to drop what I'm doing for the rest of the day and go play with some point cloud data.
Well, Jackie, I think we've overwhelmed the crowd. So I think with that, you can end the recording and you can go play with point cloud data.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for attending. And we have more sessions tomorrow starting at 10. We got some quick capture, some going from GIS Manager to GIS Leader and the National Spatial Reference System. So be sure to join back in. And thank you guys for presenting on UAVs and what we can do with that data.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.